Hey guys, welcome to Code Decode. Today in this video, we are going to see the strategy design pattern interview questions. This design pattern makes sure that you follow the solid principle and you follow all the best practices. And if someone asks you in an interview what design pattern have you used in your project, you must have the capability to say that yes, I have implemented strategy design pattern in our project in a particular scenario. By the end of this video, I'll make sure you can understand and also elaborate this in your interview while answering such questions that which kind of design pattern have you used in your project. So let's get started.
Please like, share, and subscribe to support us. And we are setting a like target of 500 likes.
What is strategy design pattern? So strategy design pattern is a behavioral design pattern that enables us selecting an algorithm at runtime. Too much of theory, let's go to an example and then we'll come back to theory to understand it better. So this is a real-time scenario, okay? We have multiple encoding options out there. Now I want to send some data from one microservice to another microservice, but I want to send it in encrypted code like the password or some client secret, client ID, some very sensitive thing I want to send here and there. Now you cannot send it in the string or the text format. You have to encode it and then send it. Now there are multiple ways to encode your string, that is MD5, SHA1, SHA2 and many more out there in market. Some clients want to encode in MD5, some clients want to encode in SHA1 or which is much more securer than MD5 and so on. So you have multiple clients and multiple clients have multiple requirements to encode your given string in a particular way. So what will you do? You will check if client sent MD5, encryption, do this. If client sent SHA1, encryption, do this. What will happen at the end is when the fourth one comes, you have to modify the same class which violates your solid principle of open and close principle. Do not modify the existing class, rather extend it and make it a new class, then add the new feature to it. Do not just keep on modifying the existing class. It can break things. And your if and else will more of a monolithic kind of non-modular code you will write with if and else and if and else. To mitigate that problem, at runtime only you can decide MD5 has to be chosen, SHA1 has to be chosen, or SHA2 has to be chosen. Now that is strategy design pattern to decide which strategy for encoding is to be taken into account at the runtime. Strategy design pattern is a design pattern that enables you to select an algorithm to encrypt at runtime. Instead of implementing a single algorithm directly with an if condition, else condition, if algorithm required by client is MD5, then encode with MD5. Else if the guy requires SHA1, encryption code is this. So rather than giving it a single algorithm directly, code receives runtime instruction to which family of algorithm it should use. So these are the family of algorithms and which out of them the runtime you will get to know, and runtime that particular spring bean will be executed. What we could have done it, typically we would have bundled all algorithm in a host class. So I could have encryptor. If algorithm is MD5, encrypt using MD5. Well, algorithm is SHA1, encrypt using SHA1 and so on. So this, don't you think this is so much switch case, if case, monolithic way, non-modular completely. Now if the third one comes, you have to modify the same encryptor class and modify this if-else logic. It's not a good practice in Java. So at runtime, the loop goes through all if, else if ladder, results in a tightly coupled rigid software which is difficult to change. Simultaneously, if the fourth algorithm comes, like triple DES or custom algorithm, then you have to modify the same encryptor class. This is also violating the open and close principle of solid principle, as this in this principle new functionality should be added to the new class rather than the existing class, but you have to modify the encryptor class. You can avoid all these issues with a strategy pattern. How do we implement the strategy pattern and how does it actually works? So let's first see the demo and then we will come to the theory part. So we'll quickly create a Spring Startup project named as Strategy Design Pattern Demo. Everything is fine. I'm just going to take a Lombok, Spring Web. Nothing else do we need. Simple Spring project. So the project is created, Strategy Design Pattern Demo. What are the participants of the strategy design pattern? We are going to create an interface having encrypt method. All these three implementing classes will implement this interface and will encrypt in their own way. At runtime, we will decide who to call using a factory. So there will be third party known as strategy factory who will decide which bean to be picked at the runtime by Spring. So the main part will be this interface, these implementing classes, a factory, and an enum to store all these kinds of patterns. So these are the three kind of pattern, and enum will be there. A strategy factory will decide who to call. So let's quickly create the packages. A package with the first thing we need is an enum. We'll have an enum named as encoding pattern enum. It will have three ways: MD5, SHA1 and SHA2. Simple. The enum is ready. Let's quickly create another package named as encrypt. This encrypt will, as decided, will have an interface. This interface named as encryption. This encryption is an interface is going to have a public void encrypt method. And this is going to take a string to be encrypted. And also a method which will return the type of encryption. That will be an enum that will be returned. Get encryption type. Great. Our method is ready in the interface. So our interface is going to have two things: to encrypt it and to set the type of encryption at runtime. Now I'll have implementing classes. So I'll have a class named as MD5 encryption, which is going to implement encryption base interface. It has two unimplemented methods. We will implement all those two methods. Encrypt is going to just printing. We are not putting any kind of logic here. If you want, I can give you the logic for encryption in the GitHub repository also, which will encrypt it to 32 bits of hash code, which is the task of MD5 to encrypt your text to 32 bits of hash code encrypted value. So I'm just printing here. I am encrypting using MD5 encryption method, and simultaneously I'm going to return encryption type dot MD5 because we are using the encryption type of MD5. Our first implementation is ready. Now our clients can need SHA1 encryption, which is going to use SHA1 encryption method, and the enum that we are going to return is SHA1. Similarly, we can have SHA2 encryption method, which will be using SHA2 as an encryption technology and encryption SHA2 as an encryption enum type. So this is where you set the enum. That is in the class itself, you set it. What kind of encryption type it is. Now our base is ready. We have this ready and in place. We have enum ready. We need a strategy factory now. So let's quickly create a package called as factory. This factory is going to have a class, which is the main class, encryption factory. This factory is going to have a map of a key and a value. So at runtime, I need that if I give you MD5, please call MD5 encryption implementation and encrypt my string with MD5 encryption technology. So I am going to pass enum and you are going to return me type of encryption. So there can be multiple type of encryption. That is why we are using the interface here, because it can have any kind of encryption. It can be MD5 encryption, it can be SHA1, any kind of encryption. So give it a base interface and then it can have anything. Now this class has to be a component if you want to keep it auto-wired in your main class. This you are going to call this from the main class, fetch the encryption by giving an enum to it. So you're going to give an enum, you're going to get the bean of MD5 encryption IMPL class. So for that, to auto wire, you need to make it a component. Now you need a constructor which takes a set of technologies we have for encryption. Encryption types set. In this constructor, which is going to be a public constructor, and we want to auto wire it because we want to get this called as soon as the bean is going to be created for encryption factory, that is at the startup. So as soon as I'll run this application, the bean for this encryption will be created because of it, this @@ component, and then because it is auto wired, this particular constructor will be called. Now this constructor is going to be responsible to create the map at runtime during the application startup only. So as soon as your application starts, your map should be ready. So I have a create strategy This strategy method is going to take your set. And what this method will do, method is going to create this map at runtime during the application start. So let's create this map and let's give memory to this map with a new keyword and put the values in this map. So this encryption set is going to have three values. That is MD5, SHA1, SHA2 because it is a set of type encryption. At runtime, it will see the implementing classes for encryptions are 3, MD3, MD5, SHA1, SHA2. In this factory at runtime, there will be three data in this particular set. So we can open a stream to it and for each encryption type, let's add each encryption type to our map. So map.put, what do we need to put here? This map is going to be the enum. So encryption type .get encryption type. It is going to return me a enum because this interface has this get encryption type and this encryption type is nothing but MD5, SHA1 or SHA2 that we have implemented in our classes. Now the first part is done. For the second part, that is the value. Value should be the encryption type. So here whatever encryption type is coming, you should add it to your map. So your map with a key value pair is ready. This map is going to have a key and a value pair. The key is going to be the enum and value is going to be the type of encryption type. Let me put a debugger because as soon as our application will start, the components will be found by the application context to create a bean. The constructor will be called and a strategy will be created and map will be created. And I can show you that map on the runtime with three values where the key will be the enum types, that is MD5, SHA1, SHA2 and values will be the reference to the beans created for the three types MD5, SHA1 and SHA2. With this in place, I also need one more method to find the strategy, right? So public method I need, which will return me the type of encryption and the return type is the parent. It can return me any child of it. So if my parent is encryption, what I'm going to return is any of the MD5, SHA1 and SHA2 encryption because these are the child of the parent only. At runtime, it will have the dynamic binding and it will have the child of it. So I have a method called find encryption type and you have to give it the enum. When you give it an enum, you will get back the bean of encryption. Either it is MD5 encryption, SHA1 or SHA2. This is the very important part, okay? So return your map.get because map is a key value pair. Key is your enum type and whatever encoding enum you give, you will get in return is the type of encryption at runtime because this find is going to be called at runtime. Everything is in place. We have the encryption interface, we have the three implementing classes, we have the enum ready, we have the factory ready. Now we have to test our code. So we need to create a controller. In the controller, I'll have a REST controller named as, I'm just putting a demo controller here. Don't put abrupt names like I'm putting here in the real-time project. This is just for the demo purpose so that at least you understand what is strategy pattern and how you can implement in your own project. Here I need a get mapping / encrypt. Public void encrypt with encoder and encoder will be coming as request parameter. So at the request parameter, I'll have the enum. What is the enum that I need to give? So here the factory has to give in an enum. Then only it will able to give you the bean. So at the controller, I need to give it an enum. Now you have your enum in place. What you need is you have created this factory as a component. Why? Because you can auto wire it at the end. So here you need to auto wire your encryption factory and you can use this factory to find the encryption type by giving the enum. Now this will return you with what? It will return you with the encryption. This is the interface and this interface has methods to encrypt it. So encrypt and I can give code decode. So please encode code decode with either MD5 or SHA1 or SHA2. And with this in place, a particular encrypt method from either MD5, I can have I'm encrypting using SHA1. If this bean is injected. One more important thing, make all of them as service if you want them to be injected. So this is a very important part, make all of them as a service because it has the logic to convert the text into an encrypted format. So this is having the business logic. So all of these should be a bean. Otherwise, how will they be injected at runtime? If they are not beans, they will not be injected at runtime. So everything is ready. Our controller is ready. Let's see if it runs or we are forgetting anything. So let's run it as a Spring Boot application. So here you can see our debug comes as soon as our debugging starts. So no, our application is not yet started. If you can see here, application is not started. You cannot see application started at 8080. Can you see? No, it's just initialized. It's not starting. So initially itself, when they are creating the beans, the first encryption factory bean is created. Constructor is called because it is auto-wired. Eventually, the tree set is going to have the three MD5, SHA1 and SHA2 encryption. So all the three we have in place. Now we are going to create a strategy. So we are going to give a new memory to map with these three set for each encryption type. So initially my encryption type is the first one, that is MD5. So map is going to put the enum type MD5 and the value is going to be MD5 encryption and so on. For each of this, the map is ready. So let's see the map. The map has key value pair. Key is SHA1, value is SHA1 encryptions, bean. Secondly, we have MD5 with a bean. Thirdly, we have SHA2 with a bean. So this is the hash code of the bean. So we have the map ready with the key value pair. If you pass it MD5, the implementation class MD5 encryption will be called. Now we are done and we have created our map. Now you can see Tomcat started on 8080 because the beans are successfully created. Now, so let's create a get method. http://localhost/encrypt is the get mapping and a request parameter has to be encoding pattern enum. So key is going to be encoding pattern enum and I'm going to pass MD5 and let's try to hit it. The control comes here. In the demo controller, the code goes here. It is going to find the encryption type. Does MD5 encryption bean, the real bean. So let's go and put a debugger here also. So that I am encrypting with MD5 method should be called. So yes, I am encrypting with MD5 method is called and it prints I am encrypting using MD5 method. Now if I'm a different client and I don't want MD5, it is less secure, I want SHA1 and if I hit it, then again the code goes here in the controller. From here it passes the SHA1, corresponding SHA1 encryption method is going to be called. So at the end the call will go here. I am encrypting using SHA1 and I am encrypting using SHA1 will be called. Three type of different clients can encrypt your same data code decode with three different strategies by passing just from here. So at runtime it is decided which class is going to be called. That was how you implement a strategy design pattern. Remember what all you have to implement? A basic, remember this diagram and then everything will be easy. A basic interface you have to implement, an enum you have to implement which contains the name of the types of encryption you use. Then you have to create the implementing classes with a different type of code. Then you have to create a strategy factory, which is the most important part, which creates a map. That map is going to have the name and the implementing class and the bean which will be created at runtime, and that is why it has to be a bean. Otherwise you will not be able to auto wire it at the controller level or anywhere where you want it. Then you have to create your strategy. And how do you create a strategy? By getting the encryption type, all the three of them, and adding it to the map. Then at the runtime, when you want to fetch it, at there fetch the type based on some logic. Here I'm getting it from the client. If you don't want to get it from the client, you can also take it from the property file. You can also take it from some kind of attribute from an object. Multiple ways you can fetch this particular logic. With that logic, you can encrypt the data. Now at runtime, it will be decided which particular encryption technology will be called MD5, SHA1 or SHA2. If you can see, we have nowhere auto-wired the type. We have just auto-wired the factory. Factory returns you the implementing class. So that was all in all how you implement a strategy pattern. Now you will be asked in an interview what is the real-time use. So I have told you one kind of example, that is to encrypt the data using the different encryption technologies. There can also be a scenario that you have to zip your file and add it to the storage account. So you can create a zip file, gzip file, lz for any type of compression algorithm you might be using. Some clients might want to compress their file with zip, some want to compress it with some other like 7-zip or LZ4 or anything. Then these different type of algorithms can be implemented in a different class, which will have the solid principle implemented, because whenever you are adding a new encryption, you don't have to do any change in any of these 4 files. The only thing you have to do is create another file, implement this encryption, and you will be good to go just by adding it to the enums. That's all you need to do. Add it to enum, add a new class. Nothing in the existing class which is having your logic has to be modified. Not this, none of the logic class has to be modified. Another important scenario where you might have used this, you might have different sorting techniques. One very important scenarios from the real time I'll tell you. We have to send emails to clients, right? There are multiple scenarios where we have to send client mails. Now you can have multiple integrating systems like inbuilt ways of sending emails or customized emailers, as Infosys, TCS, many of them their own mailing systems. So customized emailing systems. So there are multiple algorithms with which you can send your emails. So rather than using one and deprecating another and removing the whole code, rather you can do is you can create different scenarios. So this one can be inbuilt mailing emails system. One can be XYZ mailing system, integration with them. There can be multiple ways to integrate with which you can send your emails. So you can have all those things in place. Now, if I want to send it using the internal email, I can use internal emailing system. If I want to send it to real clients on the prod, I can have a different emailing system. So even it can change from environment to environment. You can have multiple integrated emailing systems in your system, and then you can choose it at runtime. If it is prod, send it using the XYZ outside integration, or if it is a dev and internal people, use internal emailing system. So that was all about the scenarios and the real-time ways where you can use a strategy design pattern in your project. And also you can answer that this is how I have made sure my classes are supporting solid principles and open and close principles specifically. If you have doubts around this, let me know in the comment section. Else, if you want more such design pattern, then also you have to let me know in the comment section. Thank you.